The hangar doors slammed shut behind them. 25 of the highest paid aviation engineers on the East Coast turned in unison and froze. Standing beside their 32-year-old CEO was a man in a grease-stained jacket. Work boots, scuffed raw fingernails blackened with engine oil. Sloan Merritt had burned through $400 million. 8 months. 8 months. Consulting firms from Seattle, Munich, Tokyo. Nothing. And now she was trusting an unemployed single father who had pulled apart from the scrap bin. Behind the fence. Someone scoffed. Someone else cursed under his breath. Declan Hurst said nothing. He simply lifted the small fuel nozzle into the cold white light above the workbench, turned it slowly between his fingers, and his eyes changed. Whatever he saw in that 1 second, no one in the room was prepared for what came next. Unintelligible. 8 months before that hangar fell silent. A Crestline Airways flight bound for Pittsburgh dropped 1,200 feet over Western Massachusetts in less than 9 seconds. The cabin lights flickered. Oxygen masks dangled like dead vines. Somewhere in row 26, a child screamed in a pitch that made the flight attendants forget every drill they had ever practiced. The captain's voice came through the intercom cracked and breathless, requesting emergency clearance into Hartford. By the time the wheels kissed the tarmac, 180 passengers were weeping, praying, or filming. The footage was online before the engines had finished spooling down. Sloan Merritt watched that same footage at 4 o'clock in the morning from the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office on the 38th floor of the Crestline Tower in downtown Boston. Behind her, the harbor lights blinked indifferently. In front of her, a frozen frame of a stranger's terror. She was 32 years old, the youngest sitting CEO of any major regional airline in the country, and the only daughter of the man who had built Crestline from two leased turboprops into the largest privately held carrier on the eastern seaboard. Three of them did. Almost $2 billion in market value vaporized like steam off hot asphalt. Reputation ever Sloan since. Responded the only way she knew how. The kind of woman who. The first firm came out of Seattle. In the morning, adjacent expectancy that arrived in dark suits 3 o'clock confidence. Kind of leader who never cried, never apologized, and ran never every diagnostic until in the manufacturer's playbook. The Hartford incident was the fuel filters in 11 weeks. Swapped sensor harnesses. A Crestline jet out of Logan had lost. And at the end of 90 days, right engine somewhere. A 400-page report whose final sentence read, back home in essence, on a single turbine, that they had found nothing actionable and recommended the radio that study. No captain ever wants to whisper on the spot. Before that, the second regional flight from Munich, Portland had reported a low frequency, vibration so to violent that of cruelty. They charged $140 million. The galley counter own equipment. Each event was investigated. Each investigation came back with the same inside the Logan hangar. No mechanical failure detected. Two entire engines down to the last titanium washer. No pilot error. The aircraft on paper were perfect. They found a microscopic the Federal Aviation Administration did not care what the paper said. Blade that within they declared 72 hours of the Hartford landing was the cause. Two senior investigators were inside the Crestline Maintenance Complex Act. 6 weeks later, Logan International opening just out of inspection lost partial flight data recorders from Bangor, asking questions that sounded polite and felt like teeth. To refund $1. The agency's regional director called. By every internal measure personally was now used the phrase when they had started that every airline executive learns to fear the most before they learn anything else. $150 million grounding under review. They were supposed to be the receiver against her miracle workers. After the line they had saved 2 Asian carriers from worse situations than this. Always does. They worked in near silence for 8 weeks. Columnist wrote that communicated had become the fast food version of aviation. Translator. Cheap and dangerous. Of those 8 weeks, and that Sloan Merritt was a translator delivered a single careful dress up in her father's conference room overlooking the national morning show. The ran a segment engineer wishes Madam Chief red letters. Executive to know that he is unable aviation design to identify the source of the irregularity. Cable News booked retired. He asks for her forgiveness. Then they bowed. Then they left. By the time the 8th month closed, Sloan Merritt had spent more than $400 million of her company's cash, fired 43 people, hired 61 others, sat through 117 briefings, and learned exactly nothing. She did not already know on the morning that flight had dropped over Massachusetts. Her chief operating officer had begun avoiding her elevator. The board was meeting without her. 2 of her largest corporate clients had quietly transferred their charter contracts to JetBlue and Delta. And the FAA had given her notice that a final ruling on the provisional grounding would come within 3 weeks. That was the morning she walked into the Logan maintenance hangar in charcoal coat and 4 inches heels and